This weekend, New Orleans is marking 20 years since Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Gulf Coast, plunging 80% of that city underwater, displacing 770,000, and launching the largest search and rescue operation in U.S. history. The Coast Guard rescued 30,000 people, airlifted 6,000, and more than 1,300 people died. Here's part of a report from NBC's Priscilla Thompson.
20 years to the day after the Category 3 storm overtook the levees, 80% of the city was flooded. Unforgettable images of water up to rooftops. A days-long rescue operation, residents seeking refuge at the Convention Center and the Superdome.
It was horrible.
More than 1 million people across the Gulf Coast were displaced. 2 decades later, tourism has rebounded. The city even hosted the Super Bowl earlier this year, and some neighborhoods have emerged stronger than before. But outside of the tourist areas, scars from the flood lay bare. This is what the hardest hit Lower Ninth Ward looks like today.
Joining me now, Jarvis DeBerry, MSNBC opinion editor. His latest op-ed says much of what you were told about Hurricane Katrina was wrong. Welcome, Jarvis. I'm glad you're here. Before we get to your op-ed, this is your city. So when tourists visit New Orleans now, what scars remain which they don't get to see, and what is still desperately needed by people who live there and those who were never able to return?
Hey, Alex. Thanks so much for having me. I think for the most part, tourists don't really get to see the parts of New Orleans that were lived in, that were home to hundreds of thousands of people. The city can be really seductive if you're a tourist and lure you into just staying in, say, the French Quarter or the Central Business District or the Lower Garden District. But to really see the full extent of what happened in New Orleans, you have to kind of break free of the tourist mindset. And so you would have to go to Gentilly, you would have to go to parts of Central City or parts of the Upper Ninth Ward or Lower Ninth Ward or New Orleans East. And that's not always on the itinerary for people who are just coming to have a good time.
Yeah. You know, Jarvis, in your op-ed, you mentioned city and state officials making some outrageous characterizations about the Black survivors of Katrina while that tragedy unfolded. What did they say, and why did they say it?
They said a lot of horrible things, up to and including babies being raped in the makeshift shelters, that there were children who had their throats slit, that there were freezers in the convention center with bodies stacked upon bodies, that people were firing guns with the intent to bring down rescue helicopters. I don't really know why they said it, except that it can be really easy to believe horrible things about people that you don't have the greatest amount of respect for. And in this case, we had people who were mostly Black, mostly poor. And there are a lot of stereotypes about people who are Black and poor. And I don't think there was enough attention given to wait. These stories aren't really lining up. They're really not making sense. One of the first National Guard officials to arrive at the convention center, for example, told the Times-Picayune at the time that he brought dozens and dozens of body bags, expecting to fill them all. And there were, I think, at most 2 or 3 bodies of people who had died of natural causes. And so it's really important in these situations of crises to be more deliberate with our speech and not less. And that was not a lesson that the officials at the time adopted. I just pray that they've adopted it now.
In an effort to try to end this on a positive note, you have written about Lieutenant General Russell Honore. He's been on my show a million times. He brought calm to a city on the brink of chaos. Do people fully understand the role he played?
I hope so. New Orleans was in desperate need of a hero at that time, and I don't want to suggest that one person, one man did everything to make things better.
No, of course not.
But in a city that was really desperate and teetering on the brink of chaos, he was a calming influence. And I'll say that one of the most important things that he did, and you see this in, I know, Spike Lee's documentary, When the Levees Broke, the first thing he did was to order his troops to put your weapons down. These are American citizens, and they do not deserve to have your weapons pointed at them. And just that was exactly what the city needed to hear.
100%. Yeah, he did a wonderful job. Not alone, to your point, but he definitely executed very, very well what he had to under unbelievable circumstances. Jarvis DeBerry, thank you so much for joining us and talking about this. Appreciate that.